Not being happy with where my life is going, I decided to change it, and I took it and put it in my own hands. I had work clothes on, and I went to work.
1 minute, Chad Hiltz was everywhere, turning rusted scraps into wild customs and proving you didn't need big money to build something unforgettable. The next, things started feeling off. Uploads slowed, rumors spread. Fans began asking the same question over and over. What actually happened behind the scenes of Bad Chad Customs? Some say fame changed everything. Others point to pressure, controversy, and internal fallout that never made it on camera. And the deeper you look, the stranger the story gets. Because what the audience saw on TV might be very different from what was really happening when the cameras stopped rolling. Before the controversy, before the rumors, Chad Hiltz was known for something simple but rare, making the impossible look easy. Long before TV cameras showed up, he was already building wild customs out of scrap metal in rural Nova Scotia, far from the flashy car scenes in the US. No massive sponsors, no high-end tools, just raw creativity, long nights, and a reputation for turning junkyard leftovers into something that stopped people in their tracks. That gritty, almost reckless style became his signature. While most builders focused on perfection, Chad leaned into chaos, exposed welds, brutal proportions, and designs that felt more like rolling art than traditional hot rods. Some loved it, others didn't get it at all. But nobody could ignore it. That authenticity is what caught the attention of TV producers. Bad Chad Customs wasn't polished or predictable, and that made it perfect for reality television. Viewers weren't just watching cars get built, they were watching pressure, deadlines, and real-life stress play out in real time. Chad became the face of a brand built on attitude, speed, and pushing limits. But success like that comes fast, and it doesn't slow down. And as the spotlight grew brighter, the cracks behind the scenes started forming, setting the stage for everything that came next. What many viewers didn't realize is that Bad Chad Customs was never a one-man show. The cars may have carried Chad's name, but the operation ran on a small, tightly knit team that handled everything from fabrication to filming. Jolene was often the voice of reason, keeping the shop grounded when deadlines closed in. Colton and the rest of the crew filled in the gaps, grinding through long hours with limited resources and almost no room for mistakes. That dynamic is what gave the show its energy. Arguments weren't scripted. Stress wasn't exaggerated. When tempers flared, it was usually because the pressure was real. Builds were ambitious, timelines were brutal, and the budget was always stretched thin. Every episode pushed the crew closer to the edge, and viewers could feel it. As the show gained traction, expectations grew. Fans wanted bigger builds. Producers wanted tighter turnarounds. And suddenly, the same teamwork that fueled the early success was being tested nonstop. Small disagreements started to feel heavier. Personal boundaries blurred with business demands. What once felt like a group chasing a shared dream slowly began to feel like survival mode. And when that kind of tension sits unresolved, it doesn't just disappear. It waits until something finally breaks. When reality TV entered the picture, everything about Bad Chad Customs changed overnight. What started as a gritty shop working off instinct suddenly became a brand expected to deliver nonstop results. Cameras didn't just capture the builds, they amplified every mistake, every argument, and every rushed decision. And with millions watching, the pressure multiplied fast. The show's appeal was always its raw, no-frills style, but that same approach became risky under tighter deadlines and public scrutiny. If a build ran late or didn't land the way fans expected, criticism came instantly. Comment sections filled with debates about quality, safety, and whether Chad was pushing things too far. What once felt bold now had to survive constant judgment. Behind the scenes, the workload exploded. Filming schedules, promotional appearances, and fan expectations stacked on top of the already chaotic shop life. There was no pause button. Every project had to be bigger, faster, louder than the last one. And when you're working with limited money and limited time, something always gives. Fame doesn't just shine a light, it magnifies cracks. And as Bad Chad customs grew more visible, the stress that once stayed inside the shop spilled into public view. That's when whispers started turning into rumors. Because once people sense instability, they start looking for a reason. As the audience grew, so did the criticism, and this is where things took a turn. Online, some viewers began pointing out similarities between Chad's builds and designs they'd seen elsewhere. Comment sections filled up fast with side-by-side comparisons, and accusations surfaced claiming certain ideas were borrowed a little too closely. Nothing was ever proven, but the conversation spread quickly. Supporters pushed back just as hard. They argued that custom car culture has always been built on inspiration, shared ideas, and reworked concepts. In their eyes, Chad wasn't copying, he was remixing, doing what hot rodders have done for decades. But critics weren't convinced, and the debate became relentless. What made it worse was how public it all became. Instead of staying within niche forums, the accusations bled into social media, reaction videos, and long comment threads dissecting every weld and angle. Suddenly, the builds weren't just being judged for creativity, they were being questioned for originality. That kind of scrutiny changes how people see you. Even when claims stay unproven, the damage to perception can linger. And for Chad, this wave of controversy hit right as the pressure from fame was already peaking. But the noise online was only part of the problem. Something bigger was brewing behind closed doors. Then, without much warning, things went quiet. Uploads slowed, appearances became rare, and fans started noticing long gaps where there used to be constant activity. Eventually, a post surfaced saying the Bad Chad Customs YouTube channel was officially on hiatus until further notice. No long explanation, no clear timeline, just silence. That single update set off a storm of speculation. Some assumed it was burnout, others believed the controversy had finally caught up. A few thought it was just a temporary pause before a bigger comeback. But as weeks turned into months, the questions only grew louder. Online communities began filling in the blanks themselves. Threads popped up asking if the show was canceled, if the shop had shut down, or if internal issues had finally boiled over. Every small change, missed appearances, deleted comments, reduced interaction, was treated like a clue. What unsettled fans most wasn't just the break itself, but how sudden it felt. Bad Chad Customs had always thrived on chaos and momentum, yet this felt different, controlled, almost forced. And when creators step away without fully explaining why, people assume the worst. Because in the world of online fame, silence speaks louder than any statement, and whatever caused that pause, it clearly wasn't something simple. Not long after the hiatus, attention shifted to the people closest to Chad, especially Jolene. Viewers had watched their dynamic for years, so when she became less visible, speculation exploded. Online, rumors started flying about arguments, power struggles, and even claims that things behind the scenes had gotten out of control. None of it was officially confirmed, but that didn't stop the internet from running with it. Commentary videos and forum posts painted wildly different stories. Some claimed the pressure of the show created an unhealthy work environment. Others suggested personal boundaries were crossed as business demands kept growing. A few went even further, hinting that outside forces had stepped in after things allegedly escalated. Again, these were claims, not facts, but once those narratives take hold, they're hard to erase. What was confirmed is that Bad Chad Customs publicly addressed controversy surrounding expectations inside the shop. The wording was careful, but it acknowledged tension without going into details. For many fans, that was enough to validate their suspicions. When relationships blur with fame and money, cracks form fast. And by this point, It was clear the issues weren't just about cars anymore. They were about people and the cost of keeping the brand alive at all costs. Not long after the hiatus, attention shifted to the people closest to Chad, especially Jolene. Viewers had watched their dynamic for years, so when she became less visible, speculation exploded almost instantly. Online, rumors started flying about heated arguments, control issues, and whether the pressure of keeping the brand alive had pushed things too far. None of it was officially confirmed, but once the internet senses tension, it fills in the gaps fast. Commentary channels and forum threads began spinning their own versions of the story. Some claimed the work environment had become overwhelming as deadlines and expectations stacked. Others suggested personal and professional boundaries blurred in ways that caused real friction. A few went even further, hinting that outside intervention may have happened after things allegedly escalated. Again, these were claims, not proven facts, but they spread quickly. What was confirmed is that Bad Chad Customs publicly acknowledged controversy tied to expectations inside the shop. The statement didn't name names or offer details, but it was enough to convince many fans that something serious had been happening behind closed doors. When a business is built on intensity and nonstop pressure, relationships are often the first thing to crack. And by this point, it was clear the issues surrounding Bad Chad Customs went far beyond just building cars. Today, the story of Bad Chad Customs sits in a strange middle ground. The brand never fully disappeared, but it never returned to the nonstop momentum it once had either. The shop's name still carries weight. Old episodes continue to circulate, and fans still discover the builds that made Chad famous in the first place. But the energy feels different now, quieter, more guarded. Instead of a clear comeback or a definitive ending, what fans got was distance, less access, fewer updates, and no big explanation tying everything together. For some, that silence confirmed their worst assumptions. For others, it simply looked like someone stepping back after being pushed to the limit for too long. What often gets overlooked is how fast everything happened. Chad went from underground builder to reality TV star in a short span of time, without the buffer most big brands have. No massive team, no safety net, just constant pressure to deliver bigger and wilder results, while the internet watched every move. So what really happened to Chad Hiltz? It may not be one explosive moment or single scandal. It may be something far more common and far more human. Burnout, strain, and the heavy cost of turning raw passion into public entertainment. And that leaves one final question lingering. If Bad Chad ever does return in full force, will it be the same chaos fans fell in love with, or something entirely different? The story of Chad Hiltz isn't as simple as a rise and fall. It's a reminder of what happens when raw talent collides with nonstop pressure, public scrutiny, and expectations that never stop growing. Bad Chad Customs was built on chaos, creativity, and pushing limits. But those same traits can take a toll when everything becomes public. Whether Chad's step back was forced or chosen, it changed how fans see the brand forever. And maybe that's the real shock. Not a scandal or secret, but the cost of turning passion into entertainment and what gets lost when the cameras stop rolling.